This episode of Bonfireside Chat is brought to you by patrons from patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. All the lovely, lovely people out there who have decided to support this show that they enjoy by giving us a couple bucks a month. And yeah, we really, really do appreciate it. Thanks.
Some of our landings were desperate adventures. We are now prepared to meet the inevitable counterattacks with power and with confidence.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Kole Ross.
And you're listening to Bonfireside Chat. It is a kindled favorite.
Yes, and this week we are reading your responses to the Catacombs of Carthus. Big thanks to Steve Gaynor for joining us last week. We let him go. Do we say that? We're recording this before the actual episode.
Yeah, quit fooling. Quit pretending.
we will have let him
we
go.
don't know. We don't even know what's happened. Like that, we could die during that episode. Like I know I say that all the time, but like that episode could literally not exist.
Two
and
satellites.
There's only the appendix.
Two satellites simultaneously fell on both Portland and Cincinnati. It's kind of hard to believe that it would be a coincidence.
It's the Bilderberg group. It's the Build-A-Bear group. They got us. Yeah. When the moon hits your town like a big cannoli crown.
Yep. That's
Illuminati's House of Pies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have not recorded that yet, but we are going to record your responses. This is just scheduling nonsense in the summer of like crazy scheduling.
Yep.
Which will not end.
I mean,
it's not bad. It's all good. But I just mean we have more craziness coming. That made it sound like it's really bad. I just mean that like it's going to keep getting crazy.
Well, yeah, until August, at which point it dies down. I don't even know when this episode's coming out. It might already be good by then.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm going to get us started with some follow up. This letter specifically is from Alan. However, this was brought
hundreds of people.
Yep.
No, that's not quite true, but a lot of people have brought this up. So thank you, Alan. Thank you, everyone who brought this up. This is always what happens when there's a correction or like a major oversight that we make, and I appreciate everyone who brings it up.
Yeah.
It's just funny that it always ends up just being like, well, that's my Twitter's. I'm gonna get one of those about once a day.
Yeah.
For the foreseeable.
It's funny when it happened more than 6 months ago.
Yeah.
But we also got letters from Mikhail, and part of Dakota's letter was about this, and then a bunch of people on Twitter. But Alan says, in the Fair and Keep appendix, Gary, after reading out David's email, wondered whether the other Lords of Cinder gained the same ember-like effect on their clothing. This moment was one of my favorites in Dark Souls 3, helping to justify the ember mechanic and underlining the importance of the importance and power of the fire in a way the series hadn't touched since the Link the Fire ending of Dark Souls 1. It also helped sharpen the game's thesis that despite Hawkwood's mutterings, the Lords of Cinder are, like the player has always been throughout these games, simply a powerful person to Link the Fire. Specifically referring to the fact here that yes, the the Abyss Watchers do kindle, as do all of the other Lords of Fire, and he provides lots of evidence here and links and stuff, saying this recurs throughout the Lords of Cinder fights. Aldrich, Yorm, and the twin...
two princes. 1-2.
Yep, one kneels before you. Gain the effect.
They both kneel before you.
Yes.
It's very sad.
Most prominent in their clothing. Please find the relevant links below to verify my statement.
Yeah. I mean, I believe it. I just didn't. It's hard. Those little details are hard to pick out, I think, during a fight.
Yeah,
for me, because you're fighting.
Yeah, I see. Like all of the aesthetic goes away, and I just see wireframe.
Yeah, I'm just trying to I'm imagining hitboxes and dodging.
Yeah,
and stuff. But they do all get kind of fire-related powers at some point halfway through, which is neat. I don't know exactly what it means.
Yeah.
If they are literally embering up, but like. It is. They do gain fire powers halfway through.
It is.
So
if they are embering up, that is a cool thing, and there's enough there for it to be like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. It doesn't. I mean, it's when I say I don't know what it means. I'm not saying I doubt that it happens. I just don't know exactly what that means in this world, other than just kind of like
if they're like
powering up,
borrowing the power of the flame to help keep themselves alive or what have you.
Yeah. And like it doesn't like.
I mean, that's what you're doing when you ember up, right? Is borrowing the power of the flame, maybe?
I think so, but it doesn't feel like it's not a zero-sum game. Like it doesn't subtract from anything. it's just kind of weird. Like if you're borrowing the power of the flame, like the flame is also this limited resource in the world, and like it doesn't seem to hurt anything to do that. It just kind of you just kind of like embodying it.
Yeah.
What's the let me real quick pull up that ember thing.
Yeah, I'll do that.
And see if that gives any insight. You go ahead and do that while I read the next response.
Yeah.
Or did you already get there?
No, go ahead.
Oh, so Gordon says via contact, he disapproves of this area. He says, I'm sorry, Gary, but this one did not come together for me. There's a great visual, these are moving on to things about the Catacombs of Carthus, of course. There is a great visual promise with the central pit, and if the level had played more with that, it would have been a lot more interesting than the nondescript catacomb level number 291. Bone spheres were a hilarious escalation of wheels, however. They've moved into another dimension. Used to be bone discs.
Yep.
Oh shit, they're spheres.
And then all of a sudden they're 4D skeletons looking in on us.
Bones are a flat circle.
Hyper bones, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a hypercube made of femurs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily disagree. This is not my favorite area in the game.
No.
It is surprisingly weird to do this before we've actually just talked about it, though.
Yes, it is. We've only done this a handful of other times. It's such a slight area, and we're going to cover that in the episode. Like, it is like a pit stop into a different kingdom that really just kind of comes through in the item descriptions. And, like visually, there's nothing going on here. Like,
it's pretty Chalice dungeony. In the terms of just like a lot of right angles and tunnels, not quite. It's not the Chalice dungeoniest, but it's fairly Chalice dungeony. And there's some joys to be had. And I like skeletons, and I like the boss a lot, but it feels very disconnected from the rest of the game to me. So it also did not come together. It doesn't have like a strong central conceit of the level. Like those spheres almost are a thing,
right?
That would have been something else they could have really leaned into in addition to a pit, but it just didn't really happen.
Yeah,
and some great moments. But.
Like skeletons devoid of a lot of other context. Like in the Huntsman's Copse, they made just a little bit of sense because it was people who were kind of disgraced by the Iron King in the catacombs. Catacomb Prime. That was related to like the giants and the people who were interred there. Like there's just not enough to give this kind of like context. And there's not enough to say how this exactly fits into, undeath and immortality in the Dark Souls universe.
No clue.
Ember's description: no unkindled can ever truly claim the embers that burn within a champion's bosom, which is precisely what makes their yearning for warmth so keen. So
okay.
this
so maybe
is...
are those like other champions? Are they the embers, like the remains?
Well,
are they borrowing power?
So the image of those of the ember, it is kind of a charred and still burning like ember of a humanity or a human effigy, right? So I can only assume that it is like the ashes of somebody who was kindled, maybe.
Yeah, like you're using up a person. It's not like just borrowing ambiently, kind of magically. It's
right.
like their power, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is their power, which may or may not have come from the flame. Like I don't know.
Yeah,
like
I don't
initially
know.
Like an Olympic flame kind of thing. Moving on here to Gwillem, who voices some severe disapproval. I kind of resented this area at the time. With the benefit of hindsight, I've reconsidered, and I now resent the absolute fuck out of this area. Mostly, it's the callback problem again. I'd hoped that the game might be building to some kind of point with its gratuitous recycling, and this area pushed that hope into sheer desperation. It wasn't even pretending to do anything new anymore. It was so openly artless that surely it must have been great art. It was the only logical explanation. Any moment now, the curtain would be pulled back, and we'd see that no, they weren't lazily phoning it in. They were in fact being very brilliant. The Catacombs' artistic aspirations don't seem much loftier than just killing time for a bit, and aside from the few minutes where it decides to also be the depths, there's pretty much nothing that can't be accurately assumed from reading the first word of the area's title. Maybe From thought an injection of dungeon crawling on Wii would make the Irithyll skyline drop our jaws further. Maybe it did. It's not even a bad area. I actually really liked the boss fight, though. Though anything that involves a screen-sized skull looming out of the darkness is pretty much guaranteed to win me. The rest was just too familiar, though.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah.
Again, some really great moments in this. I like that. I mean, if they're going to have an area that's about skeletons and taking one that just turns the skeletude up to 11, like I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, but I have to admit, what's happening there is just I'm kind of being blinded by the gimmick of it, and just kind of liking what they've done by bringing this enemy that I missed in Dark Souls 2, and it had no place really in Bloodborne, but like I miss the reanimating, really fast curved sword people, right? Like,
Yes.
it's like those trappings I feel like were enough to get me through it in the first go through, but like right now all that we have is that short story about Wolnir.
It's really unmemorable. Imagine it being 1.5 times as long. Like it would just be, so bad. Like it, yeah. So yeah, mostly on down on this, other than again the goof, the moments that we talked about in the episode, or will talk about, are currently talking about, or will have to be talking about,
Yep.
or will have having been talked about. Matt says via contact, Farron's Keep and the Catacombs of Carthus created an interesting juxtaposition during my first playthrough. The former feels like we have been accustomed to in Soulsborne games in terms of evolving level design across titles. That is to say, it's the most recent refinement in the line of the Valley of Defilement's miasmic progeny. The latter, in contrast, seems to be recombining elements from both Sen's Fortress and the Catacombs from Dark Souls 1 together, rather than drawing from just one genealogical line of refinements in level design. While I don't believe it succeeds consistently at all times, the recombination of the traps, boulders, and the rough internal architecture appearance of Sens with the regenerating skeletons and bone wheels from the catacombs makes for an interesting experience. I am torn between whether Soulsborne games would be better served by more efforts towards innovation through synthesis, or if they should just stick with laboring down single pathways until they craft what I assume will be the platonic ideal form of a poisonous bog in digital space. Also, the Katamari skeleton boulder was just wonderful. Here's a third option. Mm-hmm. What if they just did different stuff?
Yeah.
Like I don't know if I need to see the I mean, I don't mind there being a swamp level and everything. It's a kind of tradition, but like I definitely don't feel like we need a catacombs level in every game.
Right.
And, a version of every single one of these tropes,
I mean,
in each game.
So saying, hey, we're going to continue, innovating through synthesis. I mean, that feels like a really pale form of innovation, which is like, hey, we kind of had everything laid out in the, like we did it all right the first time. And as opposed to just stopping, we're going to just try and like bang those parts together. There has to be a new part somewhere, and there are.
Yes.
Like there are these little like shining moments that come through, but how many times have we said like, hey, this is like Latria, this is like this, like there's only so much you can get by just kind of like iterating through synonyms like that, or similes.
Yeah Agreed.
Yeah.
Like I would like to see and again, that's just, I think it speaks to the oldness kind of the series, even though it happens in Bloodborne too, which is not in the same world, but they're still just kind of like, this is like Latria, this is like stuff we've seen. There's less of that in Bloodborne than there is in Dark Souls 3, but it's still there. So it is it does make me, I mean, we talked about this a lot, but like I'll play whatever. If a new Souls game comes out, if Sony decides to make Bloodborne 2, I'll obviously play the shit out of it, but I would love to see them just take on a different setting and get out of some of these tropes, because as somebody who doesn't really feel like Farron's Keep is like the platonic ideal of a swamp, I don't know that the platonic ideal of any of these individual tropes is really worth pursuing. Even if I really love them. I love Sen's Fortress.
Yeah.
Boaz says via contact, pyromancy is my favorite expression of magic in the Souls games, so having pyromancies explicitly diverged from the Great Swamp School is intriguing. Carthus took to pyromancy the way Farron did to sorcery, a way to enhance martial prowess. Acid Surge canonically had an unknown provenance in the first two games, but making it a pyromancy of Carthus adds context to previous lore and places Carthus in the world alongside those other kingdoms. I'd love to see Carthus itself, but given the age of the catacombs, I'm betting it's a bit of a wreck. If you don't call it out in the episode, the description of Acid Surge has some fantastically bleak irony. Carthus swordsmen attached great value to victory and would not shun the use of pyromancies, or such pyromancies, for where is the honor in death and scoured bones? And yet that's all that's left of Carthus. It reminds me a lot of the poem Ozymandias. The last line is even in pentameter. As a final note, I never learned that you could climb down the bridge before Wolnir. I just stood on it and surfed down. Much more exciting.
That's what I've always done. But mostly
I've never I didn't know you could surf down. I assumed it killed you.
Yeah.
Again, weird tensing. We would have brought up that description, partly because everything we know about Carthus is from these descriptions.
Mm-hmm.
So more or less we have to bring that up. And it is a really cool kind of poetic bit, since they are all skeletons, and is also kind of shows that these are these warriors that, did away with what is commonly referred to as kind of honor, as opposed, and instead victory by any cost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I'm always down for when a different kingdom or a different culture harnesses these elemental powers in a different way. Like that is one of the cool things about kind of the iterative approach to, these kind of repeated stories around this.
Yeah. You can see, and we got a little bit of that in the Artorias of the Abyss thing with like Black Flame and the kind of the dark, dark magics.
And we get it here too.
And in hexes too. Yep. That's kind of what hexes are as well. Those kind of, it is neat when people magic as a way of charting the way that different cultures kind of express their values is a really cool thing that the series does. So
Brian says, so I'm farming shackles from the large red-eyed Skelebros in the catacombs, which is arduous, but I have subsequently had a fair amount of time hanging out with the giant skeleton boulders. After more casual observation than one should really endure, I have come to the conclusion that the skeletons that compose that boulder are having the most fun of any enemy in the game, rolling around, smashing hero and foe alike. I can just imagine them overdubbed with a sound clip from the early 90s of people on a roller coaster. So I didn't, I look at the skeleton boulders. I see remains being desecrated. I know they don't live there anymore, but I still see it as an indignity. I never thought to overdub "Don't Stop Me Now" on top of it.
They are. I don't know if I even thought of them as being joyous, but I also didn't think of them as being undignified. I think it was one of those things where like it's just like, oh, come on. Like the idea of painting anything serious onto them is ridiculous to me. Because they're just giant. Like, I don't know, but my roommate was playing Demon Souls, and he got to Latria, where there's the first big corpse ball.
Yeah.
And that thing is somehow disturbing and cool. And I don't know exactly how that works, where this ball of flesh is actually scary, but you replace it with bones and it becomes the goofiest goddamn thing in the world.
Well, I mean, okay, imagine somebody with putrefied flesh hanging off their bones doing a cool dance to marimba, as they're missing their jaw, so their tongue is kind of hanging loose, like their hair's coming out in clumps. Replace that with the same person 4 months later and they're just bones, and all of a sudden what was a ghastly display becomes, I think, flesh is the missing element in that.
Flesh is scary. That is the skeletons and Souls of Darkness are just like, that's entirely the point, is that they just have fun. So like, and that's all they want to do is like hang out and tell jokes and play in bands and stuff. So I think that is true. As we lose our flesh, we become stronger and better.
Yeah, well, we're just rocks at that point. Like,
boil me.
Hey,
turn me into one skeleton friend.
Yeah, make me into soup. Come on, man.
Yeah, exactly. Soup.
Hey,
soup.
Let's take stock of the situation.
Yeah. Yusef says my contact. Having played nearly all of the Souls games, I find it difficult to be surprised in the same way that I was constantly mortally surprised when playing the first Dark Souls. But even the cynical old warrior was not ready for what came my way as soon after entering the catacombs. I was descending a long, narrow staircase on my guard when I heard a rumbling behind me. I jumped easily out of the way as a huge boulder flew past me harmlessly. It registered barely a thought, a trifle compared to the nightmare of navigating through Sen's Fortress's Boulderville's halls. I had forgotten about it and was looking up the staircase to see if there was a culprit who had tossed it when I heard the strange rumbling growing behind me. I turned just in time to get smacked in the face and tossed off the bridge, glimpsing dozens of tiny skeletal limbs grasping out from what I had mistaken as a simple hunk of rock. I laughed out loud to myself and applauded a truly hilarious and well-designed trap. I'm glad that even this far in, Dark Souls has something new that will kill me in a totally unexpected way.
Even if it's just a new version of the boulder trap. Like, there you go. Like, the silhouette is just different enough that it could probably baffle you. And the idea that it rolls back uphill, is also...
Yeah, that is... Because it doesn't make any goddamn sense. It's somehow... I mean, it does, because the way it makes sense is there's a skeleton with a fancy hat. No, it's a skeleton with a fancy hat
know.
controlling with his mind. It's even less logical that they're pushing themselves.
I picture him mind controlling all of them to like, okay, all the ones at the back, you guys push as it hits and go. Like,
Yeah.
I kind of see him conducting this glorious marimba symphony.
Well, they literally just explode when he dies.
Yep.
It's like
They don't know what
I would
to
love it
do.
if they would, as opposed to them. If the way you were describing, if that was the case, I would love it if like when you killed the hat skeleton, they just stopped rolling.
Mm-hmm.
Because I just one of these things just kind of like aimlessly listing around would be like fantastically creepy.
Yeah.
You know, like just as a physics object, you could push around and didn't actually do anything. It would be awesome for invasions and stuff too if you could like roll these things over people, or hide behind them.
I'll take control of them.
Yeah.
And then like literally
to
make
get
them
that hat.
Katamari. Yeah.
And then it becomes the Nikita from Metal Gear Solid.
Oh shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, we just made a cooler, not game, but a cooler like feature for
That would be neat.
for something that
Yeah.
that isn't there. So something
Well,
about
what a cool covenant that would be, man. Think about a covenant that like lets you'd hide your character, and then you got to take control of monsters in the area.
Oh yeah.
Like it put you in the like whatever the strongest monster was in the level, it put you in control of it.
Mm-hmm. And when they
That is a covenant.
when you got killed, then it would you would transfer to the next one, but they could very easily find you. So it's you trying to protect your body.
Yeah, like when you transfer, you let out a scream so they can kind of triangulate where you're at. But they're trying to, you're controlling these monsters, and they're trying to find your body, your out of body experience. That thing as soon as possible. Like maybe all the monsters get a little bit stronger.
It's just a more
Combined
direct. It's a more direct grave lording.
Yeah,
yeah,
it'd be cool though. I'd like to control one of these things.
Some behind the scenes stuff about the way these are put together. So I've made an effort this season to kind of arrange these to mimic the path through the level. So if there was like general stuff or stuff about the beginning, I'll put it there, and then I'll end with the boss stuff. I don't know if you noticed that, Gary, but it's something that I've worked hard to do.
I didn't.
Yeah.
Sorry if that's the answer to.
No,
the
it's
worst
fine.
possible answer for explanation of effort.
No, it's fine. But I've done it, and it's subtle, but I'm proud of it. So when I was looking at this, we got so many people who just wrote about the boulders. I feel bad leaving them out, but everybody who wrote about anything also included the boulders, so it was hard to figure out where to put them.
Yeah.
Well,
because there's only there's like three things that happen in this level.
Yeah.
It's like boulders, bridge, Wolner. It's really all that's noteworthy.
Yeah. Let's see here. Tom writes via contact. One of the things I love about From Software is the way that they come up with brilliant gameplay ideas and then have the confidence not to spam them all over the place. Nintendo does the same thing with Mario games, and I think it's the mark of a developer at the peak of their powers. A lesser game would be full of skeleton balls and rope bridges, but I love the fact that they only exist here. It helps them live long in the memory. Speaking of which, I love the boss fight. It was totally unexpected and caps a really entertaining section. Dark Souls always serves up a good skeleton zone, and this one is probably my favorite.
It is. They don't. It's good they don't reuse those things.
Yeah.
There's a couple of those skeletons that end up in the area below here.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of the Carthus kind of swordsman things, but for the most part, the skeleton balls, the bridge, mechanic is unique.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Yeah.
And that bridge mechanic is really pretty hidden, I think. And also hides a fairly big area of the game, which is not something that lesser developers would do. So another thing that I respect that developers do that is kind of exhibited in this level is like hiding their content away.
Yeah.
Which I really like.
We've talked about that since, that was a huge thing about Bloodborne too,
Yeah, I mean, even with the Painted World, like that's something that's been part of the show. I think that's something From more or less does in just about all their games, except maybe Demon Souls.
Yeah.
But even Demon Souls has huge optional, like there's whole, sections of like 2 you don't have to explore.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Doug says by contact. The Catacombs of Carthus contains what may be my favorite moment in any game of the year. The moment where 100 Ray Harryhausen skeletons, or Skelulons.
Bonulons, please.
Bonulons. I like Skelulons too. They're both pretty good. Skelulons, Skolulons.
I like Skelulons. There's something about the sound that makes it sound more, Uland. Like.
These Skolulons rose up and chased me, has left me gobsmacked. Ordinarily, 1 enemy in Souls is a duel, 2 or 3 is a puzzle, 4 to 5 is a difficult puzzle / endurance test, and 6 or more means you've messed up and aggro too many. But a swarm? I can't recall anything like this before. The closest thing was the zombies outside the cathedral, but they were slow and easily avoided. These deadites, however, Each pose a threat individually, so as a collective, they appeared initially to be an insurmountable obstacle. Most games at this point would just take over and resolve the problem in a cutscene, but here I got to use one of two Indiana Jones solutions. Cut to Temple of Doom Bridge and watching them fall, or I could lure them back to the Raiders of the Lost Ark boulder and let them get crushified. To me, this is what makes for a true gaming set piece, not just the illusion of agency, actual agency. From throws something almost comically ridiculous at you and lets you fend for yourself. It almost seems like the developers got drunk and said, fuck it, put in all the skeletons. No matter how hard it is, someone will learn how to beat it with a rock band guitar anyway. I love that idea, even though I think that the actual... but they want you to run to the boss.
Yeah.
I think. But the idea of I never thought about bringing it back to the boulders.
No.
So I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will have said this in the episode. I only discovered the bridge cut by accident by fighting some of them on the landing, because I didn't know that I was going to be running straight into the boss fight.
You try to 300 them.
Yeah.
They're all at one end of the bridge.
Yeah. I mean, and they come pre-bottlenecked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Dakota says via contact, I enjoyed the Catacombs of Carthus and the boss fight with Lord Volnir. I absolutely loved the gimmick with the bridge, and always giggle when I can send a whole crowd of skeletons plunging to their deaths. The rest of the catacombs were slightly less memorable for me, but I still like to hang out down there and play with the big skeleton swordsmen, especially since they're a great way to get items that help with the ever-popular bleed builds or sharp gems. As for Volnir, I was very pleased to hear that Gary also liked the boss fight. There's something about the chance to take what little he has left and send him plummeting into the darkness that I liked as a game mechanic. I think it's a great example of an interesting and unique fight. Although he's huge and immortal, not even those advantages can stop him from succumbing to the abyss.
Yeah, I mean, we are going to have we'll do talk about the boss when we actually get to the episode. And I love the way that this boss, because you don't defeat him.
Right.
You don't actually, you can't kill High Lord Volnir.
Yeah.
He's the best. He's he's the king of all skeletons. All you can do is give away, get rid of his last way he's clinging, into this world from being sucked into the abyss.
The last links in the chain that is kind of holding him.
The things that leave him comfort. I love that.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And Randy says via contact, Carthus. It's probably the dusty D&D archlich inside me speaking, but something about the Bone Zone catacombs resonated with me. Maybe it's the all right angle corridors filled with an internal skeleton party. That's what I have 24/7. An eternal skeleton party. Maybe it's the corpse catamaris. Maybe it's the weird cowardly hat skeleton that seems to be driving them. Whatever it is, this place just screams old-ass Dungeons & Dragons module to my wizened ears. Be still, my fist-size dustclod. Most wonderful of all, though, is this area's boss. Oh my good golly, Volnir. What a cool fight. I suspect that this is not a popular position on the matter, and I understand that it is a relatively simple puzzle boss. In fact, so thin is the veil that masks this mechanic, I stumbled upon the solution accidentally by way of simple hack'ems and slash'ems. Hackulons and slashulons, thank you. But thematically, I love this boss so much. From the opening where you have the Stark Room containing naught but a grip of candles and a sippy skull, spooks are on the menu. This is a good response. But it is you who are to be sipped upon, and the skull takes you into an abyss-choked cave. After an incredible reveal, you then proceed to fight a giant lich inside its own goddamn phylactery. A phylactery made out of its own skull. The idea of fighting a powerful figure inside its own reliquary just tickles me to no end. Not only that, the fight itself involves you destroying the one thing keeping this powerful yet terrified being safe from the only thing that scares it. You go into a lich's safest conceivable place, his own soul bungalow, and forcibly condemn him to his worst nightmare. It's metal as fuck. It's real good.
I will no longer say the word body. I will just say soul bungalow.
Soul bungalow is very good. This is that's very good. This is my favorite Jimmy Buffett album.
Damn it! I was going to say it's my favorite clarinet album.
Oh,
the album by the instrument clarinet.
I wish I'd let you say it just so I could have really wanted you real good. No, that is a good explanation of why I like this boss.
Yep.
Sippy skull.
Soul Bungalow. And just finally here, we've got some just funnin'. We're okay. Parker says, via contact here, Dark Souls 3 is my first Souls experience. I have since started into Dark Souls 1, and it has been a time. Meeting my friends and foes from 3 for the, quote, first time is super cool. Seeing what would be an earlier version of this recursive world is sometimes breathtaking. It was hard to adjust to a world that, through the game mechanics, feels more hostile and punishing. No fast travel, enemies not leashing, less invincibility frames, slower combat, harsh. I guess this message isn't really going anywhere, but thank you for the show. P.S. Fuck Basilisk, though, for real.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I know other people who have done Dark Souls 3 first. I mean, we had Stuart on the show, and he had started with that, correct?
Bloodborne.
Yeah, he had started with Bloodborne. He has not done the previous Dark Souls, but he's talking about going back to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is an odd place to be.
Yeah, and we hypothesized that person existed in some of the early episodes of this season, and I'm very happy that that people are taking this opportunity to go back and explore. And would that I could see this series through your eyes, and also would that I could experience Dark Souls 1 for the first time again.
That's what I really want. like that's the cream filled crumpet right there.
But I mean, if I'm bargaining with the genie,
Yeah, that's true. If you can only have one thing. Thanks everybody for your responses. If you have anything to say about the first part of Irithyll,
yep.
So this is going up through Pontiff Sullivan. Hit us up at duckfeed.tv/contact.
Yeah.
As mentioned in the regular episode, a brief or a mild kind of revision to our spoiler policy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, timey-wimey, we have not discussed this, but we talked about it because in looking at the Irithyll stuff, there are things that come after it. So this is your last stop to get off Spoiler Town.
You're pretty close to the like if you want to mainline it, you're pretty close to the end of the game. I know it's only August and this season goes on forever, but like after this there are no punches pulled.
Yes.
We're going to talk about that thing that I bleeped out in the whatever episode with Austin. You know, like
so you're gonna get so if you are playing along with the show and people have expressed skepticism that person does exist, we hear from them, they do exist. If you are playing along with the show, now is the time to take 2 evenings and get ahead of the show.
Yes.
Because the next couple episodes we're going to start talking about some doozies.
Mm-hmm.
If you have anything to say about those doozies, though, that episode we're joined by Bob Mackey from Retronauts, duckfeed.tv/contact.
Yep. And the usual things, Patreon, iTunes ratings and reviews, talking about it with your friends. All of that helps us out. And I don't know if we're going to have any deleted scenes.
No, we're under a weird time crunch. So thank you guys very much for writing in. And we will see you in one. Oh, and we had an amazing Skype problem. So if the edit is weird at any point or there are any weird things, that is why.
Yep.
We are beset by time problems and just like the worst internet thing. And I don't know if it's Skype's fault. Skype or Comcast, though, the 2 most popular companies in America. One of them must take the fall.
Oh man, it is as though Lord Volnir is reaching out from his goblet and crimping the connection that
if
binds
Skype
us.
is his right bracelet and Comcast is his left bracelet, and then I don't know, Cincinnati Comcast is his other left bracelet. Let's smash them all and send this beast back into hell.
And end the podcast forever. Umbasa.
Yeah, I guess not the end podcast. I didn't think about that. I actually like this beast. Umbasa.
And we all pray that we will have far more soon